Ethan was an ordinary man on Earth, but he was anything but ordinary when it came to his curiosity and love for adventure. From a young age, he dreamed of exploring places no one had ever seen before. Stories about distant planets, strange creatures, and civilizations far beyond Earth fascinated him. When the opportunity came to join an expedition to a remote planet called Zalara, Ethan didn't hesitate. Zalara was a mysterious world, barely touched by humans. It was surrounded by legends and rumors of beings unlike anything people on Earth could imagine. The journey to Zalara was long and tiring. Ethan and the team of explorers traveled through vast stretches of space in a sleek spaceship that shimmered under the stars. The closer they got to Zalara, the more Ethan's excitement grew. He imagined what awaited him there: strange landscapes, unusual creatures, and maybe even signs of intelligent life. When the spaceship finally landed on Zalara, Ethan was the first to step out. The ground beneath him felt different. Softer, almost like velvet, but firm enough to walk on. The air was fresh but carried a scent unlike anything he had smelled before, a mix of wild flowers and something metallic, like the smell of rain, on steel. The sky was a deep shade of violet, with two suns shining gently overhead, giving the whole planet an otherworldly glow. As Ethan took in the strange beauty of Zalara, he noticed movement ahead. A group of figures approached, but they were unlike any humans he had ever seen. Their skin shimmered faintly, reflecting the purple light of the sky. They moved with grace and confidence, their eyes bright and curious. At the front of the group was a young woman who stood out from the rest. She wore elegant robes made of shining fabric that seemed to change color as she moved. Her presence was powerful yet calm, and Ethan felt an immediate connection, as if she was somehow important. The woman introduced herself as Princess Lyria. She was the daughter of Zalara's ruling family, the one who led her people with wisdom and strength. Despite her royal status, she smiled warmly at Ethan, her eyes twinkling with a mix of amusement and curiosity. It was clear she was not like any princess Ethan had read about in fairy tales. She was confident and sharp, with a playful spirit hidden behind her royal duties. Ethan soon learned that Zalara was a planet with deep traditions and strong beliefs. The aliens who lived there had lived in harmony with nature for centuries, developing advanced technology that was respectful of their environment. Their society was complex, with rules that balanced power and peace, strength and wisdom. But there was one rule that stood out to Ethan. No outsider was allowed to simply live among them without proving their worth. The people of Zalara believed that only those who could pass a series of ancient trials were worthy of their trust and respect. These trials were designed to test courage, intelligence, and character, and they were known to be dangerous. Many had tried before, but none had succeeded. The trials had become almost a legend, spoken of in whispers and stories told by the elders around campfires. When Ethan expressed his desire to learn more and possibly face the trials, the atmosphere around the group changed. Some of the aliens looked doubtful, others curious. Princess Lyria, however, seemed amused. She told him that the trials were meant to protect their people from harm, and no human had ever passed them. To her, it sounded like a fool's errand. But Ethan was not one to back down easily. As the days passed, Ethan explored the outskirts of the alien city with the help of a few friendly locals. He marveled at the towering crystal structures that seemed to hum with energy, the gardens that glowed softly at night, and the animals that moved with an intelligence unlike anything on Earth. But the most fascinating part was watching Princess Lyria interact with her people. She was kind but firm, respected but not feared. There was a genuine warmth in her leadership that inspired everyone around her. One evening, during a grand feast to welcome the new human, the mood was light and joyful. Music filled the air, and colorful lights danced across the sky. Princess Lyria sat beside Ethan, teasing him gently about the challenges he would soon face. She joked that if he managed to survive all the trials, she might even consider marrying him. A playful remark meant to be impossible, but it made the whole court laugh. Ethan laughed too, though inside he felt a strange mixture of nerves and excitement. The trials would not be easy, but this moment made him realize he was part of something much bigger than himself. A story that might change not only his life, but the fate of two worlds. As the night ended and the stars shone brighter than ever, Ethan lay awake, thinking about what awaited him. He was no longer just a visitor or an explorer. He was about to face the greatest challenge of his life on a planet where everything was unfamiliar, and every step could be his last. But deep down, he also felt ready. Because sometimes, the greatest adventures begin with a simple step into the unknown. After the welcoming feast, Ethan found himself the center of attention in ways he hadn't expected. Everyone in the alien city of Zalara was buzzing about the human who had arrived and dared to face the legendary trials. But none were more interested than Princess Lyria herself. She had a reputation for being sharp-tongued and playful, often teasing her court and subjects, but Ethan's presence seemed to bring out a new, lighter side of her. During the feast, as music and laughter filled the air, Princess Lyria leaned close to Ethan and whispered something that would echo in his mind for days to come. She said with a sly smile, "If you actually survive these trials, I might just marry you." The room erupted with laughter. The idea was so outrageous, so impossible, that no one took it seriously. The trials were designed to be deadly and impossible to pass, and certainly no human had ever come close. Ethan wasn't sure if she was serious, but he could tell it was meant as a joke. Still, the princess's playful comment caught the attention of everyone present. Whispers spread quickly, and some began to wonder if the princess was testing the limits of tradition or just enjoying a moment of humor. Ethan, on the other hand, felt a strange thrill. The idea of marriage to an alien princess was beyond anything he had imagined, yet her words gave him a new kind of motivation. The next morning, Ethan woke up early, his mind racing with thoughts of what lay ahead. The trials were no longer just mysterious challenges. They were now tied to a promise, even if made in jest. He wondered what kind of tests awaited him. Would they be physical, mental, or something he had never encountered before? The people of Zalara had lived peacefully for centuries, but the trials were their way of protecting that peace, ensuring only the strongest and wisest could join their society. As he prepared for the day, Ethan met with some of the princess's advisors and guides. They explained the first trial would test his courage. It involved entering the forest of shadows, a place filled with creatures that were rarely seen but feared by all. The forest was dense and dark, with twisted trees and strange glowing plants. It was said that only those who were truly brave could pass through without losing their way or their will. Ethan was nervous but determined. He knew the trials were more than just obstacles. They were lessons. Each one would teach him something about himself and about the world of Zalara. As he entered the forest, the sounds of the city faded away, replaced by the whispers of leaves and distant calls of unseen animals. The air grew cooler, and shadows danced around him. Deep inside the forest, Ethan faced his first challenge. A large creature with shimmering scales and glowing eyes appeared. It was not aggressive, but curious. Ethan realized that fear was the real enemy here. Instead of running, he stood his ground and slowly reached out his hand. The creature studied him and then bowed its head, allowing him to pass. This moment marked the first small victory in the trials, learning that courage was not just about fighting, but about understanding. Word of Ethan's progress quickly reached back to the city, and Princess Lyria watched with interest. She was impressed by his bravery but still maintained her teasing tone. "Don't get too confident," she warned with a smile. "The hardest trials are yet to come." Her words were playful, but there was a seriousness beneath them. The trials were not only tests for Ethan, but a way for her people to judge whether a human could truly belong among them. The second trial tested Ethan's intelligence. He was brought to an ancient temple filled with puzzles and riddles. The temple walls were covered in glowing symbols, and each door led to a new challenge. Ethan had to use logic and creativity to solve the puzzles, which required patience and deep thinking. Some puzzles seemed impossible, but Ethan's determination and sharp mind helped him find solutions that amazed even the Zalarans. Princess Lyria observed from a distance, occasionally making witty comments about Ethan's progress. She teased him about his Earth-based thinking, laughing when he made mistakes, but encouraging him to try again. This playful interaction made their relationship unique. What began as a royal jest was becoming a real connection. Ethan was no longer just a visitor. He was becoming part of their world in a way few outsiders ever had. As the trials continued, Ethan faced tests of strength, endurance, and compassion. He learned to respect the natural balance of Zalara and to trust in himself. Each trial was harder than the last, but with every challenge, he grew stronger and more confident. The princess's initial joke about marriage took on a new meaning. What was once a humorous comment was now a symbol of something deeper, the possibility of bridging two worlds. Throughout this time, Princess Lyria's attitude shifted. Her playful teasing gave way to genuine respect and admiration. She saw in Ethan a spirit that matched her own, brave, clever, and kind. The court began to talk about the unprecedented possibility that a human might actually succeed. For many, it was hard to believe, but for Lyria, it was becoming real. The story of the human and the alien princess spread across Zalara like wildfire. People were divided, some thrilled by the idea of change and unity, others wary of breaking tradition. Yet no one could deny that Ethan's presence had stirred something new in their world. By the end of the second part of his journey, Ethan stood at the edge of the greatest trials yet to come. He had survived the initial tests, gained the respect of an alien society, and won the attention of a princess who once joked about marriage, but now seemed to see him as more than just a visitor. What would happen next? Only the trials could decide. But one thing was certain. Ethan was no longer the same man who had landed on Zalara just days before. He was becoming a part of a story that would change everything. Ethan knew the real challenges were just beginning. The first two trials had tested his courage and intelligence, but the next ones promised to be much harder. The people of Zalara believed that only the strongest, smartest, and most compassionate could truly belong to their world. Ethan was about to learn what that really meant. After finishing the puzzles in the ancient temple, Ethan was taken to the next location, the Valley of Beasts. This was a place full of wild creatures, some gentle and others fierce. It was said that the animals here could sense the heart of any being who entered. To pass this trial, Ethan would have to prove that he was not just brave and clever, but also worthy of the trust of these creatures. The valley was surrounded by tall cliffs covered with strange blue vines that seemed to hum softly in the wind. The air was thick with the scent of flowers and earth. Ethan could hear distant roars and calls, making his heart race. He stepped carefully into the valley, feeling the eyes of unseen animals watching him. Suddenly, a group of large creatures appeared. They were unlike any animals on Earth, tall, with long limbs and fur that shimmered in colors like the night sky. Their eyes glowed gently and their movements were slow and deliberate. Ethan felt a mix of fear and awe. These creatures were not just animals. They seemed intelligent, almost like guardians of the valley. One of the beasts stepped forward. It was bigger than the others, with a mane that sparkled like stars. Ethan remembered what the guides had told him. The creatures could sense truth and fear. If Ethan showed weakness or deceit, they might attack or chase him away. Ethan took a deep breath and slowly lowered himself to the ground, showing he meant no harm. He reached into his bag and took out some food he had prepared, simple fruits from Zalara's forests. Offering the food, he waited patiently. The beast sniffed. The heir then cautiously took a piece from his hand. This simple act broke the tension. The other creatures relaxed, surrounding Ethan without hostility. For hours he moved carefully among them, learning their behaviors and responding with kindness. The creatures accepted him, recognizing his respect for their world. This was more than a test of strength. It was a test of character. Word of Ethan's success traveled fast. Princess Lyria heard the stories from her court and smiled. She had watched from afar, curious to see if the human could connect with the creatures her people revered. His ability to show empathy and patience surprised her. This trial was meant to separate the strong from the reckless, and Ethan had passed, with honor. But the trials were far from over. Next came the trial of endurance. Ethan was taken to the Crystal Cliffs, a dangerous mountain range with sharp edges and freezing winds. The climb would push his body to the limit. The Zalaran said that only those with unbreakable will could reach the summit. As Ethan began his ascent, the cold bit into his skin. The wind howled, making it hard to breathe. Every step was painful, and the rocky path was slippery. Several times he almost lost his footing, but each time he caught himself. The higher he climbed, the thinner the air became. His muscles ached, and fatigue set in, but he kept going. During the climb, Ethan thought about why he had come so far. It wasn't just for adventure or glory. He wanted to prove that humans could be more than what others expected. He wanted to build a connection with a world so different from his own. The princess's joke about marriage no longer seemed far-fetched. Somehow it felt like a promise, a future he wanted to earn. At one point, Ethan found shelter in a small cave. Inside, the walls glowed with natural crystals, casting soft light. He rested and gathered his strength. While there, he discovered ancient writings on the cave walls. Stories of past warriors and leaders who had climbed these cliffs and faced their own battles. Reading their words gave Ethan new courage. After days of struggle, Ethan finally reached the summit. The view was breathtaking. Valleys of glowing forests stretched below, and the twin suns hung low in the sky, casting golden light. Exhausted but triumphant, he planted a flag symbolizing peace and respect between humans and Zalarans. Upon his return, the princess personally greeted him. Her eyes shone with pride and something softer, admiration. "You have shown strength. Beyond any I expected," she said quietly. "Few could endure what you have." But the trials still held their toughest challenge. The trial of compassion. This test was unlike the others. It wasn't about physical strength or intelligence, but about heart. Ethan was taken to the Healing Gardens, a sacred place where the injured and sick were brought for care. Here, Ethan met those who had been hurt, not just in body but in spirit. He was asked to help heal wounds, comfort those in pain, and show kindness without expecting anything in return. At first, this seemed easy compared to the other challenges, but soon he realized it was the hardest trial of all. One patient was a young Zalaran child, frightened and alone. Ethan sat beside the child for hours, telling stories of Earth, laughing softly and simply being there. The child slowly relaxed, trusting Ethan's gentle presence. Another patient was a warrior who had lost a limb in battle. He was bitter and angry, refusing help. Ethan didn't push him but showed respect for his pain and his strength. Over time, the warrior's attitude softened. Through these moments, Ethan learned that true strength came from compassion and understanding, the ability to connect deeply with others, even when they were suffering. Princess Lyria watched all of this closely. The playful teasing was gone, replaced by a serious respect. She saw in Ethan a man who was not just brave and clever, but truly worthy of her world. The trials that had seemed impossible were being conquered by someone from a distant planet, someone who had once been a stranger. As the trial of compassion ended, the people of Zalara began to see Ethan differently. He was no longer just an outsider or a curiosity. He was a symbol of hope, proof that different worlds could come together. The princess approached Ethan after the trials, her voice soft but steady. "You have done what no one thought possible," she said. "You have passed the trials not just with strength, but with heart. You are no longer just a visitor here." Ethan felt a rush of emotions, pride, relief, and a deep connection to Zalara and its people. He had come so far, faced dangers he never imagined, and grown in ways he had never expected. What had started as a joke from a playful princess had turned into a journey of transformation. Ethan was no longer just a human on a strange planet. He was becoming part of a new story. A story of courage, compassion, and the unbreakable bonds that can form between different worlds. The trials had tested everything about him, and he had passed. But the greatest challenge was yet to come. What would happen next between Ethan and Princess Lyria, and what future awaited their two worlds? Ethan's final challenge was unlike any other he had faced so far. The trials had tested his courage, intelligence, endurance, and compassion. But now, everything came down to the last step. The ultimate trial. This trial was the most feared among the Zalarans, and it had never been passed by anyone before. Ethan was about to find out if he was truly worthy of becoming part of their world. The trial was called the Trial of the Ancients. It was said to be a test not just of body or mind, but of spirit. To face it, Ethan was led to a sacred place known only to the ruling family and the oldest members of the society. This place was hidden deep within the heart of Zalara, far from the glowing cities and forests, inside an ancient temple carved into the mountain itself. The temple was dark and quiet, filled with the scent of old stone and something faintly sweet, like blooming flowers from a forgotten time. As Ethan stepped inside, he felt a weight on his shoulders, the weight of history, tradition, and expectation. The walls were covered with symbols and images telling the story of Zalara's past, battles, heroes, and moments of peace. It was clear this trial was connected to everything the planet and its people had lived through. At the center of the temple was a pedestal with a glowing crystal orb. The elders explained that Ethan would have to enter the orb and face visions, tests of his deepest fears, hopes, and memories. The orb would show him who he truly was, what he had come from, and what he might become. It would challenge his spirit in ways no physical trial ever could. Ethan hesitated for a moment, but then stepped forward, touching the orb. The world around him changed instantly. He found himself standing in a place that felt both familiar and strange. His home on Earth, but distorted, as if seen through a dream. The sky was gray and cloudy, and the air was heavy. He saw his family and friends, but they were distant, trapped behind glass walls he couldn't reach. As Ethan moved through these visions, he saw moments of his past, times when he had felt fear, failure, and doubt. He relived his struggles growing up, the challenges he faced, and the moments when he almost gave up on his dreams. The orb forced him to confront his weaknesses and fears, shining a bright light on everything he tried to hide even from himself. But the orb also showed him his strengths. It revealed his courage, his kindness, and his determination. It reminded him why he had left Earth and come to Zalara in the first place, to prove that humans could be more, to find connection in a universe that often felt cold and distant. The visions became more intense. Ethan faced symbolic challenges, walking through a storm that threatened to pull him under, climbing a mountain that kept growing higher, and crossing a bridge made of light that seemed too fragile to hold him. Each challenge tested his resolve, but with every step, he grew stronger. Inside the orb, time seemed to lose meaning. Ethan's mind traveled through memories, fears, hopes, and dreams. He saw the future, not just for himself, but for Zalara and its people. He saw a world where humans and Zalarans lived together, learning from each other and building something new. The vision filled him with hope and a sense of purpose. Finally, the orb's light began to fade, and Ethan found himself back in the temple. He was exhausted but filled with a new sense of clarity. He understood now that the trials were not just tests to prove worthiness, but a journey to discover oneself. When Ethan emerged from the temple, the entire city had gathered to see if he would return. The tension in the air was thick. Many doubted he could survive this final test, but when Ethan walked out alive, their doubts turned to awe. Princess Lyria stepped forward, her eyes shining with pride and wonder. "You have done what no one thought possible," she said softly. "You have passed the trial of the ancients. You are not only strong and wise, but also pure of heart. You belong here." The court erupted in cheers, but there were still whispers of disbelief. A human had passed the trials, an event that could change everything. Some feared what this meant for their traditions, while others saw it as a sign of a new beginning. The princess took Ethan's hand, a gesture full of meaning. It was no longer a joke, but a real promise. "You have earned your place beside me," she said. "Together we can bring our worlds closer." The days that followed were filled with celebrations. Ethan was honored by the people of Zalara, and he felt a deep sense of belonging. But he also knew the road ahead would not be easy. There were many challenges to face, cultural differences to bridge, fears to overcome, and a future to build. Together. As Ethan and Princess Lyria stood side by side, they looked out over their world. A world filled with mystery, beauty, and possibility. Their story was no longer just about trials and survival. It was about hope, unity, and the power of connection. Ethan's journey had started with a simple step onto an alien planet. It had led him through dangers, discoveries, and deep truths. Now it had brought him to the brink of a new era. One where a human and an alien princess could change the fate of two worlds forever.
Sure. Here's a detailed, simple, and engaging explanation of Part 5 in about 2,000 words, written in third person. After passing the trial of the ancients and earning the respect of the Zalarans, Ethan's life changed forever. The entire planet was watching him now, not just as a visitor or a contestant in ancient trials, but as someone who had crossed the invisible line between worlds. The playful joke Princess Lyria once made about marriage was no longer just a joke. It had become a real possibility, but with this possibility came new challenges, both personal and political, that Ethan could never have imagined. The news of Ethan's success spread beyond the city of Zalara. Other settlements, scattered across the planet, sent representatives to witness the historic moment. For the first time, many Zalarans saw a human not as a stranger but as one of their own. The ceremony that followed was unlike any other in Zalaran history, a blend of ancient tradition and new hope. Ethan and Princess Lyria were celebrated as symbols of unity. Their story inspired songs, paintings, and stories told around fires. Children dreamed of a future where different beings could live together in peace. Yet even amidst the joy, Ethan knew that true acceptance would not come easily. Many Zalarans were proud but cautious. The planet had always been careful to protect its way of life from outside influence. Some feared that welcoming a human might bring danger or change too quickly. Others worried about what it meant for their identity and traditions. Ethan and Lyria faced these doubts head-on, speaking openly with their people and showing by example that their bond was built on respect and understanding. Ethan spent time learning more about Zalaran culture, traditions, and history. He attended council meetings, explored sacred sites, and shared stories from Earth. He wanted to honor the planet that had accepted him and prepare for the life that awaited him. Lyria, in turn, learned about human customs, laughter, and emotions, deepening their connection. Their relationship was not just political, it was personal. Ethan and Lyria found comfort in each other's company, sharing hopes, fears, and dreams. They walked through glowing forests hand in hand, talked under twin sunsets, and laughed at jokes from two very different worlds. The princess's playful spirit remained, but now it was mixed with genuine affection and respect. However, not everyone was happy with this new alliance. A group of Zalarans who feared change began to plot against Ethan and Lyria. They whispered in dark corners, spreading rumors and trying to turn people against the couple. Ethan was shocked to realize that even in a society as advanced as Zalara, fear and jealousy could still cause division. Lyria stood strong beside him. "We must show them who we truly are," she said firmly. "Together, we can overcome fear with understanding." Ethan agreed. They decided to host a grand festival, inviting all Zalarans to celebrate their unity and the future they could build. The festival was a mix of cultures, earth music and Zalaran dances, food from both worlds, and stories shared across generations. During the festival, Ethan gave a speech that touched many hearts. He spoke of friendship, courage, and the importance of opening one's mind and heart to others. His words reminded everyone that true strength comes from unity, not division. Slowly but surely, attitudes began to change. More people came forward to support Ethan and Lyria. The planet that had once been cautious was beginning to embrace the idea of a shared future. Meanwhile, Ethan also thought about the challenges his own world might face if he ever returned. He knew Earth was still struggling with its own divisions and fears. But his journey to Zalara had taught him that change was possible. It just took courage and a willingness to try. As months passed, Ethan and Lyria worked together to build bridges between their worlds. They sent messages and ambassadors to Earth, sharing stories and inviting cooperation. They dreamed of a future where humans and Zalarans could explore the stars together, learning from each other's strengths. The bond between Ethan and Lyria grew stronger every day. They learned to balance their differences, celebrating what made each of them unique. Their love was a symbol, proof that even the most unlikely connections could grow into something beautiful and lasting. One evening, under the twin moons of Zalara, Ethan and Lyria stood on a balcony overlooking the city. The stars sparkled above, and a gentle breeze carried the scent of alien flowers. Ethan looked at Lyria and smiled. "We've come a long way," he said softly. Lyria nodded, her eyes shining, "And there's so much more to come." They knew their journey was just beginning. The trials had tested Ethan's strength and spirit, but the real adventure was living together, building a future that neither could have imagined alone. Their story became a legend, told across galaxies as a tale of courage, love, and hope. It reminded everyone that no matter where you come from, what truly matters is what you choose to become.